Yesterday, I had a fire get away from me, and this is the second time in hundreds of burns that I've had that happen, and it all came down to one huge mistake.
But he came over and brought this thing. It was perfect. Now if I try to buy this. That's the property line there. Hopefully it's painted blue the whole way down.
And this is exactly where that moment happened. This is, or was, my Echo backpack blower that was less than a year old, and now it looks like this. Made a few modifications. Yesterday we were on a burn here in Jackson County, Alabama, and I had made a fire line down this creek bed, real rocky creek bed. I really put too much trust in that fire line probably, and we were working on the other end of this burn block. And I looked over at Luke. Actually, Luke and Hal Herring were here. Hal is from Montana, and he has a great podcast, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers podcast and blast. But anyways, he was back in Alabama. This is where he was raised, and he came out on this burn with us today, or yesterday. And anyways, it turned south pretty quick. We were on that side. We had a jump over there, actually, that Luke was putting out. Luke and Hal. I walked around the burn unit with a backpack sprayer with water just to put out little snags and watch the line. Well, I got over here to the far corner, right down here in the bottom, it had jumped the line and it was coming up this hillside very fast. So I start spraying it with my backpack sprayer. I'm running out of water. I radio Luke, I need help. Y'all get over here. I need a blower right now. I had radioed in earlier to say, hey guys, I went down to the truck. I got the gas for the blower. I'm sitting it up here by the four-wheeler. Next time, whoever uses the blower next needs to fill it up. That was my mistake. I should have immediately filled that blower up. From now on, I will have 2 blowers on every job. Every single blower will be full of gas at all times, because I radioed Luke. I said, hey, I need a backpack blower over here right now. He gets over here, and as he's walking up, I said, you put gas in it, right? Nope. And I said, my heart sank. I knew at that moment we had made a mistake, which could have been resolved with the leaf blower once we got gas in it. But I put it down in the black, the area that had already burned, because I didn't want to put it in the leaves where the fire was going to come and burn it up. I put it in the black. I got back to spraying as Luke's running back to get fuel. I run out of water, so I'm hoofing it down this mountain all the way to the bottom to get water. I'm halfway down. Luke radios me, where is the leaf blower? And I said, what do you mean, where's the leaf blower? It's right there next to your other stuff you left. No, I don't see it. It's not here. And so I knew in that moment what had happened. So I didn't get water. I hoofed it back up. I was gassed by the time I got back up here. And of course, I found this, just a little wad. That's what it looked like. In like 10 to 15 minutes, it turned into that. And Hal was up here by that time, and we both got on the rake. I think Hal had a rake. I was kicking a line. I said, Luke, run back and get water. Luke gets back to the four-wheeler, runs down to the bottom, gets water. It's taking a while, and I'm wondering what's happening. Luke finally radios in, hey, I was coming up the mountain with the water. I guess the hose caught on a stick or something and pulled the hose off, and the backpack drained. All the water drained out, which we'd still be in the same situation even if he'd gotten up here in time, because we really needed a leaf blower. With a leaf blower, we could have just quickly, in 30 seconds, made a line up here, leaf blew a line around the entire fire, and the fire would have gotten to the line and it would have stopped. But we didn't have that option anymore. We didn't have service. There was no cell service. We're in the middle of nowhere in Jackson County. And so I'm just in a panic. If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. 10 years of my life are gone, shaved off because of that moment. I'm literally on my hands and knees, gassed, inhaled too much smoke. I was on my hands and knees raking with my hands, raking a line, because I couldn't stand to kick a line anymore. And finally, Luke gets to the bottom. He radios, hey, the landowner said the fire department was just here. Somebody had called them. He told them there was a prescribed burn, so he sent them on their way. I said, get them back now. They come back. It's just one guy. No leaf blower. Hal and I come to the conclusion, it doesn't matter how many lines we rake, the fire is going to keep jumping it. We raked so many lines. Actually, let me show you that. All right, you can see right here, this is one of the lines that we blew all the way down to here. And there's just a little pig trails between here and the leaf blower. There's multiple fire lines. We put those fire lines in and they failed, and the fire just took off up the hillside. And we got to a point, it went up to the top of that ridge, and we were still raking lines up there. We raked lines. I raked lines down here at the bottom at this creek. So there's a gully over here. I was using that creek as a fire line again. It was working great. So I worked my way. I had it worked from, we had a blown line on the other side of the creek right here that was holding. I was using this creek as a line, and it was holding too. Holding at least 200 yards up to the top of this next bench. It's like terracing. And the fire's on top of that bench. It roared up it, got on the top. I raked a few of those lines. Hal raked a few of those lines up there. I looked down, and down here at the far corner where our line dog-legged, it did a right angle into this creek. So we had a good line here, had a good line all the way up the creek. It had jumped to that corner somehow. And I get down there, and I realize the wind picked up, and I realized that that little 6-inch flame was now huge, a head fire burning uphill into this block, and I couldn't stop it. And at that moment, I realized, I reached down to see what time it was, and I realized I didn't have my cell phone in my pocket. So I go back, I retrace my steps back up to this bench up here, and I find my phone. Surprisingly, I found it. I was able to find it, because if I hadn't found it then, in 10 minutes, it would have been engulfed in flames, and that would have been a really bad day. It made a bad day even worse. But anyways, we're up top, or this fire was happening, and I'm radioing Luke. Luke had already radioed at that point and said, hey, the fire, AFC's here, Alabama Forestry Commission's here. I said, send them up with a backpack blower now. We got a head fire, and Hal and I cannot contain this thing. And he said, no, they're starting down here at the bottom. They've got a plan. They're gonna put some rings around these so they don't go downhill anymore. I was like, all right, whatever. I mean, at that point, I told Hal, I said, Hal, we might as well just sit down until there's a blower here. So that's exactly what we did. We sat down and just waited on a blower to show up, because it was pointless. These lines, we kept just exhausting ourselves trying to get these lines in, and the fire just kept jumping and undoing everything we'd done. And it was so defeating, because I knew if I had a leaf blower, we'd be fine. We would be totally fine if we had a leaf blower, and we didn't, because we only had one. And like I said earlier, from now on, that is not going to be the case. I will have 2 or 3 blowers on every fire job from now on, from here on out, I mean, if this burn would have been anywhere else, I would have been in calling distance of saying, hey, I could have called up a dozen of my buddies and said, hey, I need you here right now with your leaf blower. And they would have been there, and we'd have had the fire out in 20, 30 minutes. And it'd have been easy. But I'm an hour and a half away from home in the middle of nowhere with no cell phone service. And we couldn't do, that was not an option. So we just felt so helpless. Anyways, that being said, the 25 acre block that we planned on burning to begin with, that we had come through and done some TSI on, it's opened up big time. It needed a burn because we brought that sunlight in like we needed to. You got to get sunlight on the ground, and then we burned it, and that seed bank is going to explode. It's going to be really great for wildlife. And it was 25 acres. Well, we also had some areas where we cut some trees that in Alan's plan were going to be for bedding areas. These were bedding areas that he had set. Well, we burned into some of those bedding areas. So right now they're bare. They'll be great bedding areas in another year. Actually, I just jumped some deer, bedded on this little knob right there, and some fallen trees. So they're still bedding up here. That 25 acre burn turned into a 150 acre burn. And last night, we stayed here until 10 o'clock last night, fighting fire. Me and those AFC guys, some of them were in their 60s, were hoofing it up this mountain. The roughest terrain you can imagine in Alabama. I'm not joking. It's just straight cliffs and waterfalls and huge boulders, straight uphill, straight downhill. There's sinkholes and just random caves everywhere. And those guys were just hoofing it. They've been doing it their whole life. And there was a younger guy with AFC named Luke, who was a workhorse. Absolutely, you could tell he loves his job. He did amazing, and all of them did. And the three of those guys with AFC, I think it was Lynn, Bruce, and Luke, were a heaven sent. And then Hal, dude, we all kind of split up and went with different guys to help them. Hal and Lynn were off on their own for like 3 or 4 hours. I don't know where they were. Well, I know where they're at. They're running a line around a fire going the other direction. While we were fighting this fire, other fires jumped in other places. And so Hal was a workhorse. Hal's 60 years old. And I don't know if it's because he lives in high altitude or what, but he was a lot less gassed than Luke and I were. I inhaled way too much smoke yesterday, you can probably tell. But anyways, really thankful for those guys. The landowner was extremely great. He was calm the whole time. He's cool with everything. We burned over onto a timber company property. So we got back up here this morning. There was a few spots still burning last night when we left, but the humidity wasn't going to get low enough to really put a lot of those out. Well, it had jumped in a few spots that we put out this morning. When I got here, the guy on the timber company land above us, actually this line I was fighting by my leaf blower was on the property line. So I burned 30, 40 acres up onto a timber company property. And I ran into that guy, a forester out of Knoxville. We rode up the mountain, and we got above those guys who were leaf blowing the lines around the fire. We just followed the smoke, found those guys. We were coming in behind them this morning, cutting snags with a chainsaw, raking, and just making sure it didn't jump again. And in an hour or two, everybody was done. They headed out. It's about 1:30 now. I'm gonna hang out around most of the day just to make sure it doesn't happen again. This is my fire, and I'll make sure it's not gonna jump a second time on us. I still don't have a leaf blower though. That's probably not a good idea. It's gonna be good. We put in really good lines, but anyhow, the timber company guys and some of the people who hunt that property showed up. Or a guy did who hunted that property, and we were all talking. And this is something they wanted to burn anyways. I think the hunters have been wanting this burned for years, and the timber company just doesn't, have the time or the means to get down here and burn it. So they're pretty happy with it. And I'm telling myself that to make myself feel better. But they were happy with it. This did need to burn. It is going to make the habitat better. It just wasn't in the plans, and that's what hurts. Oh man, it's so humbling. It hurts you so bad. Like, that's the one thing is people are like, how do you post on social media with all the negative comments? I'm like, listen, nothing humbles you like a fire does. A fire will humble you in a heartbeat. And I don't know. You just got to roll with the punches. But Luke ended up with a blister that big on his foot. He said he felt it pop while he was walking around out here yesterday. All of us were just wore out, nasty. My eyes were crusted shut with salt, and I found a creek at one point and washed my face, and that was like heaven. I mean, and here's the thing. We were gonna film out here yesterday because we're burning through a bunch of river cane too, like upland, like hill cane, and we were gonna film that stuff. And when that happened, I hadn't made a single video or filmed anything between the fire starting until AFC left and it was out. So that's why I'm now filming this now, because we've been so busy fighting fire. I'm just glad this is over. It was not fun. That being said, make sure you're prepared and have all the necessary equipment. Do not be stupid and leave your equipment alone during a fire. Lots of lessons learned. Lots of lessons learned on this one. And I'm gonna go pick up my leaf blower so we're not littering. I could leave it there as an artifact for future generations to come across, but I'm gonna pull it out of here. Landowner's happy. Looks really great. Looks really, really good. It was actually a really good fire. It wasn't too intense. Compared to what it could have been, it was a nice, slow-moving fire for the most part. It was just moving too fast for us to put out with hand rakes. And anyways, not a good time. But we got some bonus habitat managed, a lot of bonus habitat managed. So that is one plus. So y'all be careful. Do as I say, not as I do. Learn these hard lessons from me, and so you don't have to learn them on your own, because you will learn them. All right, we're gonna go, and I'll show y'all some other spots out of here that have burned and what those look like. Those areas that had cedars we cut down, toasted.